Okay, so here's the equation that we're supposed to solve. And the easiest way to deal with these equations that have lots of fractions in them is to get rid of the fractions. And the only way that you can do that is to multiply through by the lowest common denominator. Well, you could multiply through by any denominator actually and it would work. You just end up with bigger numbers. But so what we're figuring out here is what would be the lowest common denominator for 14, 16, and 18. And the way to do that is to factor out, this is one way, there's more than one way, but this is one of the easiest ways, and it will work well with other things that you need to factor that are not just plain numbers like these, but things like x squared plus 2x, stuff like that that needs to be factored. This will also be the same method you can use for those. So we need to factor everything out, and I'm going to do my factor trees. So this is 2 times 7, and 2 and 7 are both prime numbers, so that one's finished. This is 2 times 8, but 8 is 2 times 4, and then 4 is 2 times 2. So that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 2 to the 4th power if I want to write it that way. Or I could just write it out 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Either way is fine. Not 1, 2 times 7 if I want to write that out. And 18 is 2 times 9, but then 9 is also 3 times 3. So if I write it out, it's 2 times 3 times 3. So to find my lowest common denominator, I take, and it doesn't matter which one you start with, I generally just start with the one that's all the way to the left, but like I said, it doesn't matter as long as you make your way through all of the numbers, and I'll write down what I have. I have 2 times 7, because my least common denominator has to be a multiple of each of these numbers. It has to be something that 14 will divide into evenly, 16 will divide into evenly, and 18 will divide into evenly. Otherwise, we won't be able to get rid of all of our fractions. So I need at least a 2 times 7 to get my 14 in there. And then if I look at my next number, my 16, it's 2, and then I've got all these other 2's that are multiplied in. I already have 1 2, so I'm not going to put that down again, but these other 3 2's, I need those. So 2 times 2 times 2. And if I look at what I have so far, I have 14 from 2 times 7, and I have 16 if I just multiplied out my 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So this would be 14 times 8, or I could look at it as 16 with all my 2's multiplied times 7. So I know it's a multiple of both 14 and 16. Now to get my 18, I got to see what else I'm missing. And what I'm missing over here, I don't have any 3's. I already have 2's. I don't need another 2, but I don't have any 3's yet. So I'm going to multiply those in. And I'm going to circle this because I've kind of got close to the other things that I have. So if I multiply all this out, this is my least common denominator. And you can multiply it however you want. So when you multiply all that out, you're going to get 1008. 2 times 7 is 14. Double that to multiply by 2 again, and then by 2 again, and by 2. Anyway, you get 1008. You could do that on your calculator a little bit faster. But that's your least common denominator. So what we're going to do to this equation is multiply both sides by 1008. And on this side, since we have 2 terms, we need to distribute that. And on this side, we only have the 1 term, so I don't necessarily have to put it in parentheses. But when I distribute it, I'm going to rewrite this so I can show you. So I rewrote everything so that I moved it around so you can see a little better. I went ahead and put my LCD back up here because that's going to help me out a little bit to have all this multiplied out. And I'll explain that as we go here. So I'm going to distribute my 1008 times the x over 14, and I'm going to multiply it by the 15x over 16. After all these fractions are gone, this will look much better and be a lot easier to solve. So I know that 14 will go into 1008. There's the 14. So I could just multiply the rest of it out to see what it is. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 8 times 9, because 3 times 3 is 9, is 72. So I can just, I know that 14 will go into 1008 72 times. So it comes in handy to have that written out again. Now if I take a look at this, I know that 16 goes into 1008. There's 16. If I underline all my 2's, those are the 16. So that's 16 times 7 times 3 times 3, or 7 times 9, which is 63. So 16 goes into 1008 63 times. So they come in very handy. The 18 will go into 1008. And if we look up here for 18, that's the 2 times 3 times 3. So I'll underline that in green. So the rest of what I have is the 2 times 2 times 2. I just do this the easiest way it is for me to multiply it out. So that part is 8. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Times 7 is 56. So I know that 18 goes into 1008 56 times. But if you've got your calculator handy, you can do all those that way too. It's not a big deal. So now what I'm left over with here is 72x plus, and now I have 63 times 15, and that's another good spot for the calculator. That gets me 945x equals, and then I've got 56x here. So I've got all this. And from this point, you're just combining your like terms. We've got 72 plus 945. You have 117x is equal to 56x. And at this point, we can subtract 56x from both sides if we like. And then we'll just have something x equal to 0. So 61 times x, or 61 times some number, gives us 0. The only way that happens is if you're multiplying by 0. But if we went ahead and finished this up and divided by 61, 0 divided by, it doesn't matter how many, is going to equal 0. So in this case, x equals 0. And that's how that one works. I hope this helps.